Wood finishing can be a very intimidating subject for a lot of woodworkers, and I'm often asked if there is a simple, effective finish that can't be messed up easily, that doesn't take a lot of time, that doesn't cost as much as the wood itself, and which looks great to the eye and is pleasing to the touch. All those qualifications can be met with an ancient formula that has been protecting wood for millennia: natural oil and wax. Together, these create perhaps one of the most beautiful wood finishes you'll ever see, one that has been favored by discerning woodworkers from the times of the pharaohs, when it was pretty much all they had, to today's modern shops, where despite thousands of years of advancements in wood finishing products, natural oil and wax is still hard to beat when it comes to showcasing the natural beauty of the wood. In this video, I'll show you 3 steps to getting the perfect oil and wax finish every single time. We'll be using 2 easy to find ingredients: boiled linseed oil and paste wax, which you can find in pretty much any hardware store. Boiled linseed oil is usually in the paint department, and the paste wax is often found among the household cleaning products. We'll apply them in a foolproof 3-step process that really couldn't be easier. Let's begin by preparing the wood surface. Boiled linseed oil is a penetrating oil finish. That means it will soak into the wood and live among the surface fibers, rather than building up a shell on top of the wood, as a film finish such as polyurethane will. When you run your hand over wood that's been coated with a film finish, you're feeling that plasticky shell. But when you run your hand over wood that's been treated with a penetrating oil finish, you're feeling more of the natural texture of the wood itself. That's one of the things that has long made boiled linseed oil so desirable as a wood finish. But it also means you must do more sanding to prepare a really smooth surface, because the finish itself is not going to fill in any surface scratches you may leave behind. So I recommend working through the grits up to 220 or 240. You may even go as high as 320, but there's really little value in anything finer than that in this case. Also, notice how I used a power sander at first, but now I'm hand sanding for my final grit, moving back and forth with the direction of the grain. Hand sanding with the final grit is vital to a good penetrating oil finish. If you'd like to learn more about how to properly sand a project, I'll link to a comprehensive tutorial I made on that subject below. I guarantee you're going to learn something you didn't know. I like to wipe off the dust with some denatured alcohol or some mineral spirits, which are sometimes also called white spirits. If you don't have access to these solvents, then you can use a vacuum or air compressor or a tack cloth. Just be sure both the wood and the air around you is free from dust before you move on to your oil. Applying the boiled linseed oil couldn't be simpler. Just put on some gloves and then pour some right on the wood and spread it with a soft cloth or paper towel. You could even use a foam brush. At this stage, it's all about soaking the wood, so put it on liberally. Some areas of the wood may drink it right in. Others may absorb it more slowly. Add more as needed until the whole surface remains wet. Then let it sit that way for about 15 minutes. Don't let it sit all day long. You don't want it to start to dry. You just want to give the fibers some extra time to absorb as much oil as they want. When you come back, the surface should still look fairly wet. If it's not wet because some of the grain has sucked all the oil from the surface, put some more on and give it another 15 minutes to continue to drink it in. When it looks like the wood has stopped absorbing oil, it's time to wipe the excess away with some dry paper towels. This is important. If you leave excess oil on the surface for a long period of time, such as overnight, it will semi-harden and become a sticky mess that will never fully dry. So wipe it well and then let it sit overnight. You may even check on it a few times before you go to bed, just to make sure no oil has seeped back up out of the pores and onto the surface. If it has, wipe it clean again. When you come back in the morning, you have a choice to make. Do you want a purely oil finish, or do you want to add a wax top coat? A purely oil finish will give you the most natural texture and appearance, but some folks find it a little too dull, and the oil alone provides very little protection from moisture or really anything else. If you want a pure oil finish, I'd let it sit a few more days, then apply a second coat, maybe even a third, each with a few days between coats. Some folks even like to lightly sand with 600 grit paper between their coats. But I rarely ever want a purely oil finish. At the very least, I want to give it some added protection by applying a coat of paste wax, and I recommend the same for you. Paste wax is a blend of waxes with a solvent inside it to make it more spreadable. As I said, you can buy it in pretty much any hardware store under various brand names. I simply apply a thin, even coat. You can use a paper towel on a small project, or if you want a more durable applicator, you can use some ultrafine steel wool. Once the wood is coated, let the solvents in the wax evaporate for a half hour or so until you have a cloudy film. Then buff it vigorously with a soft, clean cloth. Buffing warms the surface of the wax and it produces a beautiful matte luster that I think is more attractive than the oil alone. The thin film of wax also adds some more protection, though I wouldn't consider this durable enough for a tabletop or anything that's going to be handled a great deal. That said, an oil and wax finish is very easy to touch up should a blemish develop. Just apply a new coat of wax. That is all there is to it. Sand the wood, wipe on the oil, buff the wax, and enjoy. Don't forget to check out those tutorials below, especially that sanding tutorial, and check this out. This is the CRB7 router jig system from Empower Tools, and it does just about everything with amazing accuracy due to its clever micro adjuster. It's just one of the many product innovations from this small family-owned company. You gotta check them out at the link in the notes below this video.